Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sim Racing Collective, and welcome to the first round of the Abruzzi GT4 series here on iRacing. We take to Germany and we take to the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben for the first round of what will be an incredible 6-week championship. Once again, the TSRC are moving their way up in the world. I've said it already. I've been back for about 10 seconds. I've already called it the Sim Racing Collective. Get used to it, ladies and gentlemen. My name, of course, is Zach Sweeney. Alongside me is the man, the myth, the legend of Tom Cairns. We're going to be speaking through the entirety of today's action, both qualifying and then into our 40-minute race. Of course, it's Kieran Sharp behind the scenes, pushing the buttons and making everything look lovely and pretty behind in the broadcast. We would usually talk you through the championship standings. Of course, it's the first round. We don't have them. But Tom, talk us through sort of what we can expect out of this championship, and particularly what we can expect out of Oschersleben as a circuit. It's quite tight, it's quite twisty, it's quite technical and challenging.
Yes, absolutely. Hello to everyone. Yes, and this championship, 6 rounds, of course, across all over the world as we are heading towards, well, we're in qualifying now, and then it'll be a 40-minute race that will include a mandatory pit stop during it. And we've got 2 classes in the field. We've got a pro class and the AM class. Now, the drivers haven't put in times yet in qualifying, but when the timing tower does appear for proper, you'll notice on the left-hand side next to their graphical name, on the names on the graphics, the grey means that they're in pro and the red means that they are in AM. And as far as I'm concerned with Oschersleben, it's a mixed one. It's kind of difficult to overtake around this circuit because I've seen other championships compete around this track, and it's kind of like a Barcelona of old where it's actually difficult to overtake. So I'd imagine the drivers will be going into this qualifying session in need of a strong lap to get a good position on the grid.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, with it being the first round of a 6-week season, by the way, we'll speak through the calendar now. We start with a double-header here in Germany. We go to Oschersleben today, and then, of course, to Hockenheim in a week's time. We then take the trip across the Atlantic to Road Atlanta on the 4th of October, before then heading back to Europe, to Belgium, to Zolder, before then jump all the way back over the Atlantic to Watkins Glen, to then just come all the way back to Belgium. TSRC and the logistical carbon footprint is absolutely abysmal. What is going on there? Going from Germany to Road Atlanta, to come back to Belgium, to go across to the States, then come back to Belgium. This is absolutely despicable. Worse carbon footprint than Taylor Swift, right, Tom?
I wouldn't know how to comment on that one, but yes, it is quite it's almost like the opposite of trying to do a logistical sort of calendar, if you like. But it's, you know, it's the TSRC, what do you expect? But the drivers seem to enjoy every circuit they're going to. I think that's the most important thing as we are watching them on circuit now. We've just seen Hutter go to the top for a brief moment until Simnor had gone quicker, but we're starting to see more and more times as the track is picking up.
Yeah, of course, as the session wears on, of course, they get 15 minutes, of which we're about 3.5 of the way through. First lap times now just coming in, and already we were I was just having a gander through the Discord, and the top 20 in practice was separated by just shy of a second, showcasing just how close each and every single one of these drivers are. At the moment, of course, you can see Mike Pollard in that Porsche Cayman GT4 ahead of Richard Phillips. Then comes Pierre-Antoine Delaire, but of course, don't count anything out just yet. Still a lot of time left to go in the session. Just want to remind everyone, of course, that the Sim Racing Collective are moving themselves up in the world of sim racing. We're getting upgrades. Abruzzi, of course, prestigious sim racing brand, have very graciously decided to sponsor this championship. If you want to head over to their page and use the affiliate link, and as well as the code of TSRC5, you can get yourself 5% off any gloves, boots, and of course teamwear when you head over to checkout. So make sure to go and do that. Of course, Abruzzi, simulation specialists in the world of sim racing, and they absolutely hit the nail on the head with each and every single one of their products. So make sure to head yourself over and save a little bit of coin as well, as we, I don't want to say it, but approach Christmas. It's not even October yet, but use the code, save some money, and that'll be that. Of course, we focus in on qualifying, and Richard Simnor has just, well, he has set the gauntlet, hasn't he? I mean, he went to half a second. Mikey Pollard was able to go to a quarter of a second back on that one. But at the moment, it seems to be Simnor's day in the sun. But then again, as we've said, still a lot of qualifying session left to go. And Oschersleben is one of those circuits where hooking up a lap, I mean, it'll gain you time at any circuit. But Oschersleben is one of those circuits. There are a lot of opportunities to lose time and mess up the entire lap. There are a lot of opportunities to gain time and find a lot very late on. So I don't think we can read too much into the times until quite literally the checkered flag.
Well, yes, absolutely. And, you know, Oschersleben is one of those old school circuits as well. It's kind of like a testing ground, if you like, where, you know, it doesn't bring, like, a lot of crowd to it, if that makes sense. It's almost like a Paul Ricard, but more with the grass and gravel, if that makes perfect sense. But the drivers don't mind it too much, because there's a lot of curved sort of corners. It's not like 90-degree corners that you find on a street circuit. It's a proper driver's circuit. You know, they love racing here. They love executing the corners, particularly through the far section of Hotel, and then through where the Shell S is, and then the Session on halt curve to round out the lap. There's enough opportunity to get the moves done, but the straights are not as long as you might think.
No, absolutely not. That's why slipstream, I mean, could well be important, but track position more so. So nailing that lap in qualifying is going to gain you quite a little bit. But of course, the pit exit here through, you come into the pit lane, just peeling off before you go into that final corner. So it is quite a long one. You go all the way around the outside of that final corner, all the way down the pit straight, then you spit yourself out into sort of the exit, or well, the wide line of turn 2 at Hotel. So that's going to be a little bit precarious throughout the race, I think, particularly as we touched on with that mandatory pit stop and coming out of track position. Very Montreal-esque, I suppose, in that sense, if you look at it in comparison to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, in regards to that pit exit. And obviously sometimes we can see carnage there. I'm sure we're going to see some carnage here as well. Richard Simnor still on that 29.6, as you can see, following through with the 997 machine. That is, of course, with David Long in his very beautiful McLaren 570S. Of course, iRacing finally bringing the 720S GT3 counterpart to the world of iRacing. But of course, the 570S still one of the best GT4s in the field. And Fleming Jensen representing the Dane up in 3rd place for the McLaren. And what I love to see, 3 different manufacturers, 1, 2, and 3 in the standings as things stand. The BOP is working, Tom.
Yeah, it is. And Mike Pollard, who set a low 1:29 at the end of practice to go top of the pile. Not that it means anything, but he's finding time as he is doing. Seeing personal bests continue to be posted. He's closed the gap to less than a 10th now, so it's game on for pole position. And we are looking. Who we're looking at here? I think we're looking at. Probably need to remind you. It's Smoggy who we are looking at as he makes his way through the hairpin of the Hazaroda, and he'll be hoping to move his way up the order as we speak. Smoggy in 8th position in the 284 Porsche, I believe. I think that's a Porsche that he is racing. Just looking on the timing tower. So many names on the score sheet. No, it's a Mercedes. My apologies for that. But that tells you about how busy the drivers are. There's so much time to find, but track position is going to be absolutely imperative.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course, Smoggy, those that have been around in the sim racing collective for quite some time will know a 2-time TSRC PC GT3 series in the world of Corsa Competizione. Find me a series name that's more of a tongue twister, I dare you. But nonetheless, he was able to do it in consecutive seasons. Or testing the memory here, it might have been seasons 2 and 3, maybe 3 and 4. But nonetheless, he's a strong driver, and particularly recently in the world of GT4s as well, we'll be looking to lay down the gauntlet here at Oschersleben. Of course, the German on home soil for the first 2 rounds of the season. At the moment sits 8th place, just shy of 6 tenths off the pace. But like we've been saying, it's not much in it at all. You go down to, well, you have to go down to P15 of William Chandler to sort of get close to the second barrier. Then, of course, it's to Ryan Walker at 16th place. That's at over a second. Mellis, of course, 1/1000th slower than that in 17th. So the gaps between each of the drivers aren't very much at all. And that level of competition is one that we're really going to want to see translate into the race, especially, I mean, we have only got 5 minutes left to qualifying, so hopefully there are some more grounds to be made. But over the course of the season, if we can keep this level of competition, the championship is going to be up in the air for as long as possible. And that is exactly what we want, especially as commentators, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as I'm concerned, there are no drop scores in this championship. There are only 6 rounds, but that tells you everything about this championship. It's going to be close, and every driver wants to make sure they get a championship point out of it. Top 20 score points, I think that's across both classes, if I'm correct. But either way, they want to make sure they finish above everyone else in their own class to stand a strong possibility of winning their class championship. Just seeing drivers going over the line, and I think Andrew Pike has just gone over the line, and he's currently 19th fastest overall, which is not quite like him at the moment in terms of where he's at compared to the field. Hopefully he'll find a little bit more time. He's probably got at most 3 more chances to improve his time and hopefully move up the order.
I know you've got to be diplomatic, Tom, and be nice to all drivers, and Andrew Pike in particular, and say that's not usually where we'd expect him to be. I would argue that's exactly where I expect Andrew Pike to be, on the back end of the top 20, 1.1 seconds off the pace. He calls himself a pro. Look at that with a grey banner on the timing tower, which, as you can see, like what Tom was alluding to earlier in the broadcast, with the differential between the pro and the AM. And you are right, by the way, they are 2 separate scoring systems. So while all of the drivers are going to be racing together, pros and AMs in a mingled grid, they are still 2 separate races. P1 in the pros and P1 in the AMs are 2 separate things. It's not one long concurrent point system based on track position. And that means, of course, with David Long putting himself up into 9th place, a good 6 places ahead of the next AM driver of Niels Kuhl, the gap between P1 and P2 in terms of points stay the same, but he's going to have 6 cars between himself and his nearest competitor, allowing him, going into the race, to have a decent advantage in terms of track position, cars between himself and his nearest competitor, that will help him, at the very least, bridge the gap and delay that battle at best, and give himself that best foot forward to try and take that AM win for the first round of the season.
Absolutely, and you've got to bear in mind, we've got the pit stops to come as well, so he needs to make sure he nails the strategy throughout this 40-minute race. Given the lap times we are seeing so far, how many laps are we expecting here? Oh, well, I think someone's found the wall, actually, just as I say that. That's just before the Shell S. They've gone back into pit road. Anyway, they're probably looking at around, at most, sort of like 15, 16 laps, maybe. I could well be wrong with that. No, it's got to be a lot more than that, because they're setting times of a minute and a half. So there's going to be lots of laps in this race, and some drivers don't really want to pit at the same time as others because they want to try and complete an undercut or an overcut on their rivals. And that's what the 9th placeman, David Long, will be thinking about, is when will he decide to pit. Because remember, the fuel gauges will be sort of like at a fixed rate, so they're only going to be able to do a certain number of laps before they are required to pit in. How they decide to do that, well, that's down to them.
Yeah, exactly. They can do it sort of bang on in the middle if they wanted to, 20 minutes to stint. They can run the car with a full fuel tank, which we're being told can last maybe about 25 minutes, half an hour, and then go for a lighter stint at the end. Or, like I say, go for the medium between the two and just have the lightest car possible for the longest time possible by just splitting it in half and doing it that way. In regards to the predicted amount of laps, it'll be 40 minutes divided 1.5 minutes, give or take, for a lap. That translates to 26.6 laps, so round that up to 27. That's probably the ballpark that we're going to be looking at, depending on battles and pit stops and things, which could slow things down. Of course, naturally, you run slightly slower in the race anyway. In regards to the fight for provisional pole, it's still Richard Simnor on a 29.609. Mike Pollard, though, has closed the gap to a 29.673, with Jamie Nuttall, of course, just in behind. Jamie Nuttall, speaking of the TSRC GT3 PC series, he was the champion of that as well. In his Ferrari 296 GT3. The first season, in fact, actually, that the Ferrari took to ACC, he was able to jump in and win after narrowly missing out to Sami Brignara in the inaugural championship back. Was that August of 2023, or was it 2022? One of the two anyway. A long time ago, let's put it that way. He's been racing for a decent amount of time as Jamie Nuttall in the world of both ACC and on the platform of iRacing. He's up there in 3rd and trying to close in onto the likes of the two in front. And again, we spoke about track position being important. Of course, as qualifying dawns to a close, Jamie Nuttall unable to improve. But how likely are the people that maybe missed out in terms of pure track position going to be able to move their way forward in the race? How is that overtakeability going to be around Oschersleben?
Well, it comes down to how many drivers are in the battle of the round. I mean, if you've got two drivers, for instance, over a series of corners side by side with each other, the field behind are going to close up, and if they start squabbling with each other, they're going to be losing time. They're going off the racing line. It opens the door for the driver next behind them to just take advantage, and it's just a domino effect, essentially. It's all pandemonium from there. So that's probably where we're going to see the overtaking happening throughout. And it's not just in the early part of the race, it's going to be later on. But I think there'll come points where drivers will think, well, we're going to end up losing time back. We may as well just stay in single file until the pit stops arrive, which I know is a rather boring way to do a race, but it's the most strategic one, it's the most tactical one.
Exactly that. Of course, check flag is flown. The final laps of the session able to be completed. I think that's a session, an option you can tick on iRacing to allow them to finish the laps, because typically iRacing is horrible, and as soon as that timer ticks 0 to end the session, it's tough luck sunshine, basically. Doesn't matter if you're on the world record pace, it will just end the session there and then. That is a mighty looking Porsche, I've got to say. The number 7, of course, of Ryan Walker, who's got plenty of experience, particularly in the world of R-Factor 2. He's raced in the Virtual Endurance Championship, I think under, oh blimey, it must have been Visceral, maybe esports. Correct me if I'm wrong. He'll probably correct me if I'm wrong, but anyway, he's got a lot of experience under his belt in the world of sim racing. Currently sits 9th place in that Porsche Cayman, which of course looks strikingly beautiful. Of course, we'll run you through the full results of qualifying once we get them all finalised, and we can look at it in a beautiful grid format. One thing I can guarantee is that Andrew Pike is down in 15th, but even then, I was about to slate him, but the top 20, similar to what we saw in practice, Tom, just over 1 second between Richard Simner, who takes pole position, and Mellis in 20th place. And don't forget, we've got a mix of pros and AMs. That level of competition is remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. And David Long will be a very, very happy chap, I would imagine, given where he's ended up. And I'll let you run down on the grid for the race tonight.
Yeah, indeed. So, of course, after 15 minutes of qualifying, it's Richard Simner from Mike Pollard, 1 and 2 for DCW Racing. Behind that comes champion of Jamie Nuttall, ahead of Richard Phillips, 3 and 4. Pierre-Antoine Delaire for the Triple 3 is in 5th, with Hayden Miller rounding off row 3. Flemming Jensen for the Dane is 7th, ahead of Felix Smoggy, Sir Smoggy, as we know him, of course, in that 284 machine. Ryan Walker ahead of David Long, who rounds up the top 10. And not only that, kicks off the AM field from technically their pole position. He'll start from 10th anyway. Liam Giles from Nick Clibbins is 11th and 12th. Ron Maynard from Scott Warner are the top 14. Andrew Pike is down in 15th, ahead of Ndika and a guy in 16th from Niels Cool. Second place in the AMs from Matt Cheverton in 18th. Behind that, of course, we've got the rest of the field, as you can see. William Chandler from Stefan Mellis, Mav Gardner at 21st, Grant Miller, the 11th row from Bart Raven, Marcio Lopez, James Smagsgale from Stephen Hooter, Johnny Wu and Thomas Martin, our 28th and final driver. No, it's not. There's more. Wow. Lewis Stone from Gareth Ronda, Lewis Mason, Mark Peace, Matt Smith and Joe Thomas. 34 cars taken to this grid. It's going to be busy into turn 1.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. And I'd like to have thought the drivers will have been briefed about the first lap, because I think there would have been imagined about the side-by-side battling going on the first lap. But I think we should expect a clean first lap. Hopefully no incidents, everyone getting through the first lap safely, and then maybe when lap 2 arrives, that's when they can start going into combat.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, you can see there behind the iRacing pace car. We'll do a full formation lap. It's not the longest circuit in the world, is Oschersleben. So we'll queue up behind and go for, of course, the formation lap. This is a perfect opportunity to get tyres, brakes, everything like that warmed up, but also mentally to get the driver themselves psyched up. I don't know as to what your extent of sim racing prowess is, Tom, but how have you maybe always used formation laps before the race, and how do you sort of get value out of them as a driver?
Well, as a driver, you want to make sure brake temperatures are up to the optimum level, same with tyre temperatures. You want to get a really good, confident feel. You want to sort of understand the attitude of the car. You want to understand how the engine operates. You want to see how the tyres operate within a particular window. And you don't know what your rivals are doing either, so you kind of have to have that level of trust in the rest of the drivers to ensure that you're not going to run into each other. I'm sure that'll be the case with the drivers. They are well respected between them all. And but yeah, I would probably say, as a driver, from just an individual point of view, just do your bit and hope that all the other drivers can just do the same and race cleanly.
Race cleanly indeed. I'm sorry, just sort of zebra striped theme livery that the BS Plus have, and even the split livery down the middle of two different colours, I cannot get over it. In fact, there's a BMW one as well, which is even more uncanny. Who's that in fourth? That, of course, would be Jamie Nuttall, of course, the pair of them teammates in that regard for Cracked Racing, I believe it is. So, yeah, interesting livery design. It might just be me having a bit of an issue with that one. Anyway, through the Shell S as we approach our way towards the final part of the lap. Hopefully, it won't be too long before these drivers. In fact, actually, no, we've got a lot. We're now going into the Shell S. This is the back straight of Stalingrad. Lap 1, Tom. What as a driver do you aim to do? Of course, you've done the formation lap. You've got the tyres warmed up. You've got the brakes warmed up. What is the aim? What's going through your head?
Well, the aim is to get into a rhythm. Don't think about trying to pass everyone, trying to make sure you get through it cleanly, and think about how you strategize your race from there. Because if you end up involved in someone else's incident, that is your race heavily compromised before it's even started.
Exactly that. Focus forward. The race is only going to be in front of your windscreen, not the windscreen in front of your race. That would make absolutely no sense whatsoever. Nonetheless, they run their way through the penultimate corner. The iRacing pace car peels itself off to the left-hand side, and it's going to be Richard Simnor and Mike Pollard, the two ARS teammates that will control the pace from the front row. It's Mercedes from Porsche, BMW and Aston Martin, the front four cars. Simnor, Pollard, Nuttall, Phillips, as we go racing here at Oschersleben for round number 1 of the Abruzzi GT4 series, brought to you by the Sim Racing Collective. Towards turn number 1, there's already turmoil in the background, but who's going to lead into turn 1? Jamie Nuttall tries to launch an attack on Pollard, succeeds into turn 1. Deep goes Simnor though, as he has to defend into turn number 2, and the BMW looks to go the long way round. Nuttall trying to attack, but doesn't quite have the agility to do so. They're side by side in the background, 3 rows of 2 as they try and settle the fight for 4th place, as Pierre-Antoine Dallaire fights with Richard Phillips in towards the next corner here at Hasselrode. This hairpin style corner, Richard Simnor leads as Jamie Nuttall moves his way in a second.
Yeah, Jamie Nuttall getting the jump on Mike Pollard into Hotel. It was a very nice overtake there, and now he's put himself within range to attack Richard Simnor for the race lead. David Long's lost a few positions, but he's still in the lead of the AM class as they all made their way around the middle part of this first lap around Oschersleben.
Yeah, single file for the time being. As you can see, just settling themselves into a slight bit of a rhythm. There we go, English or something, I don't know. Kind of as if that's what we're paid to do, maybe, Tom. Who knows? Regardless, the 333 of Pierre-Antoine Dallaire, the flying Frenchman, of course, trying to work his way forward. The white, red and black Porsche in very Porsche colours, it must be said. Not the layout you'd typically see is the one in the background. That's Hayden Miller pushing the limits just in behind Sir Smoggy in that Mercedes. And they run their way into the penultimate corner for the first time and round off lap number 1. It's going to be Richard Simnor from Jamie Nuttall and Mike Pollard that break the beam first. Or will it? Because Mike Pollard is going to be pulling up to the right-hand side as he tries to attack the BMW into turn 1.
Well, Nuttall had a very poor exit coming out of the last corner, and that's going to give Pollard a chance to go to the outside, which will give him the inside for the right-hander of Hotel. But Nuttall was able to just shut the door in time to stop him getting through.
Yeah, exactly. Very wise defence, it must be said, from Jamie Nuttall, but in doing so, maybe losing a little bit of ground to Richard Simnor. They're side by side as well. The 81 of Hayden Miller trying to launch an attack on Sir Smoggy. The Mercedes has to go to the inside through the long left, and in fact, the Porsche's got the agility around the outside. That's typically a trait synonymous with Porsche, but in the end, Sir Smoggy and his aggression fights his way through to the inside as they make their way through the triple apex left-hander before this long right-hander that leads you towards the chicane, the fast right right, left, sweeping S section that, of course, you pretty much have to run single file through. Little bit of camber on the inside of that first part to help with the rotation of the car. David Long, of course, our AM leader. Don't forget, we've got 2 races going on. He's lost a little bit of ground relative to his starting position. Understandable, considering he's racing against pros, but still got a decent leg up versus his AM competitors, particularly of Cheverton, down in 16th.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the model that Scott Warner is running, the BMW. It looks like a GT3, doesn't it, when you look at it? But looking further back, there is Lewis Mason. It looks like he's been overtaken by Stefan Hutter in the Shell S, and that's Lewis Mason down a position as they head towards the end of lap number 3. I'll tell you one driver who's had a very, very poor start to the race is Andrew Pike, who's down 14 positions from where he was on the grid.
Now you're getting it, Tom Cairns. Andrew Pikeslander all the way. He's down to 29th. You're right. I think that might well have been one of the cars we saw involved in some form of carnage on the opening lap. I remember seeing one of the cars sideways and backwards. That might well have been the likes of Mike Pisa, maybe Marcio Lopez. Again, can't confirm. Don't really know for sure, but we'll take a look back. Here is Andrew Pike. No, this is what happened. It wasn't the start. What has happened? He's the 57 BMW. This is going into the final corner. He's on the inside. He taps himself around and parks it in the middle of the circuit. In fairness, does the exact right thing, which is to brake and stay there, albeit incredibly scary. He's forced to wait. And that's the thing with a spin so early on. Everyone's bunched up. A spin means you're beached. You can't rejoin the circuit. And you've just got to watch as the positions run away.
Yeah, and Andrew Pike going for a gap that wasn't quite there for him, hence why he ended up spinning round the way he has done, and he's left himself with a lot of work to do. I did say it was the end of lap 3 last time. This is the end of lap 3. I just got my numbers mixed up, and that's probably when the leader crossed over the line as I was speaking. But we've got a battle for 4th position there. There is Smoggy, who's behind, Smoggy's just ahead of Miller and Jensen, who are coming down the pit straight towards Hotel. They're behaving themselves all the way through so far. There's no one making any audacious overtakes too soon. They just want to settle into a rhythm at the beginning before they decide how they want to tackle their strategy throughout. If you're Richard Simnor, what would you be thinking at the moment? Because you've made a good start. You've got Jamie Knuckle, who's made a good start of his own. Do you decide to battle it out with him if Knuckle is fancying it?
I mean, to be fair, it's one of those things. It's difficult for Simnor to be leading ahead of Nuttall. I mean, in fairness, I wouldn't really be worrying about him at all. I mean, obviously, there's going to be an element of it. You can see him in your peripheral vision with the mirrors and stuff, and you'll know he's there. You'll see it on your Delta. But like I said on the formation app, the race is only going to be in front of you. Focus on just putting the lap times in and hounding that pace that he showed he had in qualifying. Do that consistently, try and pull away, get out of that slipstream range and try and get away. Of course, for Nuttall and wanting to fight for the leads, naturally he's going to want to do that. He's going to want to take any chance that he can get, because in racing you never know when your next opportunity is going to be, particularly when the pack is as competitive as this. And if Simnor is able to get away, it's going to be mightily difficult for Jamie Nuttall to recatch that gap, particularly when he's putting in fantastic lap times like that. However, it's Mike Pollard that's setting the benchmark, the only driver into the 29.9s, showcasing his pace from 3rd place. So I don't think it's Simnor or Nuttall that potentially could be the 2 horses. I think it's firmly a 3-car discussion with Pollard in the mix. He just needs to close that gap ever so slightly, get himself back into the equation. And again, after pit stops, we have no idea what's going to be happening.
Well, it'll be interesting to look out at those behind, particularly Antoine Dallaire, Smokey and Miller, to see if they can start getting involved. And I think what is also important is track position when the leaders come back out, because they do not want to be stuck in traffic, which is vitally important around a track like Oschersleben. And but how can you get out in front? Well, it's going to be difficult to get the track position anyway because the field is so close. Having said that, there'll be a big gap behind depending on how long it takes to get the pit stop completed, and you just want to make sure there's no cars that are too close in front of you.
Pretty much, yeah. And again, of course, with pretty much any TSRC pit stop as such, it's not the pit stop itself that gains you time. It's not the strategy itself that gains you time. It's the circumstance around it. When do you pit? Is it early? Is it late? And obviously the on-track circumstance around that. It's not like an endurance race where, do I change tyres? Do I refuel this amount? Do I say it like, to an extent, maybe saving a bit of fuel is going to help you. You put less back in to get to the end. That's great, but in a 40-minute race, how big of a difference is it going to make? Pretty negligible. It's more a case of getting out of a train early, getting out of a fight, going for an undercut. That sort of thing is going to gain you lap time. That decision-making is going to gain you lap time, of course. Not a very wise decision. So whoever that BMW is that's running wide, the 977, that, of course, is David Long, our AM leader that ran ever so slightly wide and has now dropped into the clutches of Nick Clibbens. Of course, that's an inter-class battle. The intra-class battle is between Cheverton and Mav Gardner. That's back in 15th place for second place in the AMS. A slight mistake there from David Long, but he's doing all right. He's still leading the way in the AMS, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. All of these pro cars can pass him. It means absolutely nothing to him, because as long as he's ahead of the people that matter, that's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's given himself a cushion over Cheverton and Gardner. And Cole is right in there as well in the fight for second place in class. And then we've got Chandler, who's a pro in 18th position overall. And then, I'll say, Chandler, he disappeared for a moment, but I think that's just a connection thing. Still ahead of Raven, Mellis, and Smargersgale. So they're all nip and tuck at the moment, just want to stay in the race and just think about what we're going to be doing. And yeah, it won't be too long before we start seeing pit stops here.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think at some point some of these cars are going to say that they want to get themselves out of that train. They want to peel themselves into the pit lane and have a little bit of free rein themselves. That is a bumper. Well, it's a lack of a bumper. Looking back from Thomas Martin to Grant Miller in the number 80 machine. I don't know if that's a netcode thing or an iRacing issue, but definitely looks as though that bumper has gone missing. Nonetheless, they're in a three-way battle for their respective fights. This is for 23rd overall behind Gareth Ronda. Of course, they're about 3 seconds off the back of Johnny Woo. Momentarily thought we saw one of the drivers making their way into the pit lane, but I think it was just a case of the pit lane entry is on the racing line into that final corner. So you sort of kind of peel your way in, maybe enough for the game to recognise you as coming in. Whatever, maybe, I don't know, I barely ever know what I'm talking about. Half a second at the front, though, is the fight. That's Richard Simner versus Jamie Nuttall. Interestingly, though, because of that pace that Pollard has shown, and in fact, that last time by was 0.5 of a second quicker than Jamie Nuttall and Richard Simnor, matching pretty much his personal best lap time and the fastest lap of the race of a 29.6. He did a 29.7 that previous time. He's been able to close the gap and has got sight of the two leaders in front of him. Nuttall now is within half a second of Simnor. If they fight, Pollard is straight back into that conversation, straight away looking to hound in the pressure.
Yeah, and don't rule out the fourth place driver, Pierre-Antoine Dallaire, who could also be in the fight. They're starting to not be posting personal bests now. It looks like they've gone through the tyres, sort of like the best part of the tyres up until this point. And we're starting to see on the classification the pros and the AMs in terms of where they are in positions. So we've got Simnor, Knuckle and Pollard, your podium in pro, and in AM you've got Long, Cheverton and Gardner in the top three. But that could still change, between now and the end of the race. We're past the quarter mark of the first round of the season. There is still a long way to go, both the championship and, of course, in this round in Oschersleben in Germany.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, while there is a season ahead, it's only 6 races, which means each round is going to be taking up 16% of the overall points haul, so you can't really afford a bad week. And while it is only round 1, and for many other championships it would just be a case of it's fine, there's still the rest of the season to go. For a season like this, where a lot rides on that hitting the ground running, and because it's such a short and snappy season, because each round takes up a high percentage of the total points haul, you can't afford to have that mindset. You do need to be arriving from round 1 as a title contender. Otherwise, when you get to the likes of rounds 4, 5 and 6, that latter half of the season, and you look back in hindsight and go, could have done myself a bit of favour there. We've seen championships decided by a matter of points, a handful of points. And those handful of points are decided by not being complacent here, not having that mindset of being overly cautious at round 1. chuck yourself up the inside, gain a couple of points here or there, because they are going to matter in the grand scheme of things. You cannot afford to be overly cautious. Obviously, there's an element of being cautious in any championship. You don't want to throw it away from round one. It can very easily go disastrously wrong. You can go from 2nd to 7th and lose a ton of points that way. That's obviously more harmful than dropping back from 1st to 2nd, for example. But even then, you do want to hit the ground running well. And Jamie Nuttall is one of those drivers that will want to, particularly because you're rewarded for winning a race. The biggest points gap between any two positions are between P1 and P2. Right now, Jamie Nuttall wants that reward, wants that bonus, and it's half a second in front of him.
Yeah, the top 3 are separated what was just under a second there, but I think Pollard's made a mistake in the middle part of the lap. He's just got back to underneath a second. And it's a big swing from winning to finishing 2nd, but Nuttall won't want to take too many risks too soon. He may be thinking about the pit stops. That could make all the difference between winning this race and not. There is Matt Shefferton, who is 2nd in the AM class. He's just behind the 669 of Scott Warner. And ahead of Scott Warner is the Spaniard Ndika Ondonegi, who's just got by Richard Phillips for P12 on track.
Yeah, nicely done. And into the pit lane, Richard Phillips is making his way down for his first and hopefully final pit stop of the race. Coming quite early, to be fair, just shy of the 14-minute mark. So, for whatever reason, coming in to get out of that traffic. And hopefully for him, it's going to pay off in the end. He's run a lighter car for the first part of the race. He'll then, of course, be forced on a slightly heavier car for the latter. Of course, the heavier the car, the harder it is for it to speed up, slow down, or change direction, and that's why you want to have as light a car as possible. But at the end of the day, you still need fuel. A faster car, a car will always go faster with fuel than without, no matter how much weight you save from it. Nonetheless, here's Ryan Walker fighting with Giles. That's for P8 overall and in the Pro class, of course, between the pair of them. The Altitude Esports machine, that Porsche, of course, looking very beautiful ahead of the Mercedes of Liam Giles. Both of them net gains in terms of their positions on track, and still plenty of race left to run. I mean, we've got 25 minutes of it. We've barely scratched the surface. It's, I mean, as much as 40 minutes is a sprint race, it's still a decent amount of time for you to make up moves and showcase that importance and consistency.
Yeah, and we've just seen Marcio Lopez. It looks like he was battling there with Joe Thomas going into the left-hander of the course, the triple corner that is. And so Lopez has found his way through into 26th position. I don't know if he's stopped yet. I don't think he has. But he'll be one to just get on with it now, because he's got a long gap to make up before getting on the tail of Nathan Lewis Stone, who's in the same class as he is.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing you want to be focusing on, is the intra-class battles, not the inter-class, because they're not the ones that get you points. The ones between your classmates definitely are. There you can see a graphic of how many stops people have done, and at the moment that's pretty irrelevant, because we've only seen one driver make his way down in order to do it. But in the coming moments, in the next couple of laps, we might well see more do so. There's the train for the lead, by the way. It's 4 cars. It's Simonor from Nuttall, Pollard and Antoine Delaire, 1, 2, 3 and 4, made up of 2 Porsches, a Mercedes and a BMW. So Germany, on German soil, have probably a pretty strong chance of taking a manufacturer win at home, I've got to be honest, because the next non-German car is the McLaren of Flemming Jensen. In fact, there are only 2 manufacturers here that aren't German, and that's Aston Martin and McLaren, both of which are British. So it's going to be tough for it to not be a home manufacturer win, but still nice to see that we've got 3 different manufacturers making their way inside the top 4. All fighting again, showcasing the equality between each of the cars here on iRacing. GT4s always are a lot of fun. There is Sir Smoggy. We talk about the top 4. I wouldn't count out this couplet of Smoggy and Miller either, to be completely honest. Even as far as maybe Flemming Jensen. We don't know how pit stops are going to work out. These guys could get themselves back into that conversation. Again, it depends on how much battling that top 4 are going to do, but you know, we've got comfortably 7 cars within touching distance that, should anything go wrong, any of them will capitalise.
Well, Nuttall was right on the tail of Simonor on the pit straight, and it almost looked like he was going to be within range to attack, but he's just sensibly slotted back in. But yes, like you say, those from 5th to 7th have somehow started to close back in a little, and we're not far away from these beginning to make pit stops.
No, I don't think so. I think they'll be making their way into pit lane very, very soon. Maybe around bang on the halfway mark. We'll see maybe in a lap or two's time there. Of course, again, the battle between Ryan Walker and Liam Giles, maybe Nick Clibbins as well in that 313 BMW to close his way in as well. I mean, is anyone really close enough to go for the move, especially into this next part of the track, the fast right into the left, of course, here at the Shell S. Not really an overtaking opportunity before you're on your way into the penultimate, then into the final corner. Realistically, it's only probably going to happen into turn one if you've got a good enough run. So you're all about setting up this exit, making sure you're getting that late apex, getting the power down. That's exactly what Ryan Walker has done. In the slipstream, though, what can the Mercedes do? I just don't think the straights here are long enough for anyone really to make much gain in terms of that slipstream.
Well, this goes back to what I was saying about this track. I've commentated on other championships around Oschersleben, and it's not the best place to be getting overtakes done. And I think part of that is because of the nature of the corners. Like, if you're talking about medium speed or high speed corners, they are not the corners to get the overtakes done. It's the slow speed corners, which are very, very few around this course. I think the slowest corner is probably the hairpin of Haserode. That's probably where we're going to see most of the overtakes being done. But I think other than that, there's not really anywhere else distinctive where overtakes are going to be completed at.
Nah, to be honest, I would agree. I don't think many corners are particularly capable. I mean, GT4s are fairly raceable cars in their own right. I mean, lower downforce than the GT3, shorter wheelbases, narrower because of the aero kits and things. They should be more raceable, but even they can't, make up for a tight, twisty circuit, and they still have a decent amount of speed behind them. Couple that with maybe a little bit of dirty air. I mean, to an extent, it's going to be there. I mean, obviously they've got less aero than GT3s, definitely less aero than Formula 1 cars, so it won't be as apparent. But even if you're trying to follow, probably, to be fair, not far off the range, Richard Simnor and Jamie Nuttall, of course, Nuttall in the chase, going to be feeling a slight bit of dirty air. That's going to be working the tyres a bit more, putting a bit more temperature and scrub through them, and just maybe preventing you from getting that extra bit of rotation you need to get the run on them onto the straight. And that is where things become difficult as a driver. How do you set up the move? And it's tough, because especially if you're against a driver like maybe Richard Simnor, who hasn't made a mistake all race long, you can't bank on the fact of capitalising on a mistake if there's not a mistake to capitalise on.
Well, there is a mistake made by Richard Simnor so far anyway, and that's what Nuttall will be thinking. He's thinking about, right, do I decide to pit and go for it? Because it's difficult, because you don't want to be on a heavy fuel load. It's not like in Formula 1 where you put on a set of tyres and, you're going quicker on your outlap and you might just complete an undercut on the driver. That's not the case here. You're putting fuel in. And when you put fuel in, you're putting more weight onto the car, and then you're having to put more load into the corners when you're going through them. So Nuttall's got to hope that Simnor comes in first, which Simnor won't want to do anyway, because he's the one that's got track position. And why throw that away?
Exactly. I think it's going to be Nuttall maybe being the proactive one in this scenario, as opposed to Richard Simnor, who might well just take a backward stance. But we'll have to wait and see. You can change tyres while fueling in iRacing. So there might be a case where they can change one side, maybe one axle worth of tyres if they've got enough time to. I can't imagine they need to put much fuel into the car, and therefore probably will lose a little bit of time if they do want to change tyres. We'll see if anyone sort of does as such, but I don't think the benefit is going to be there to change tyres, particularly only in a in a 40-minute race. There shouldn't be too much that goes on in regards to tyre wear, but still maybe enough that you feel it as the race develops. More drivers into the pit lane though, most notably, of course, our AM leader of David Long. Be interesting to see where he comes out relative to the likes of Matt Cheverton and Mav Gardner, who stay out for another lap. So a race against time for David Long to see if he keeps that AM lead.
Well, he's leaving the pits now, is David Long, so let's see where he filters back out. He's still on the pit lane limiter by the looks of it, although he's got off it now. And he should rejoin. Where is he now? Is he behind? Let's look on the time in tower just to see where he's at. He's on 25th place ahead of William Chandler, who also pitted in on that same lap. And I would probably say that David Long has got a fair amount of ground. He's got a bit of track position, so that's beneficial for him. He was the AM leader before he pitted, and so that's given him a good opportunity to retain it once his rivals do come in the AM class.
Yeah, I think so. He didn't really seem too threatened in that fight. Of course, we see Pierre-Antoine Delaire making his way into pit lane. The 333 Frenchman getting himself out of that slipstream. Maybe going to be trying to run in some slightly clearer air as the race develops. Of course, we're over the halfway mark for round number 1 of the Abruzzi GT4 series here, of course, for the Sim Racing Collective. Abruzzi doing a fantastic job and in the world of sim racing, and of course very, very grateful to them for sponsoring this championship. Make sure you head over to the Abruzzi website to get yourself any sim racing gloves, boots, or general hardware. Make sure you use the affiliate link and of course the coupon code of TSRC5 to get yourself 5% discount at checkout. Definitely save you an extra couple of quid, and you get the bonus of top quality Abruzzi hardware and product as well with them. So definitely go over and have a look, have a cheeky gander at the very least. And for those that are watching along on the Sim Racing Collective YouTube channel, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn the bell on for notifications to stay up to date. Those watching on the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel, make sure to do the same as well. Let us know your thoughts, feelings, queries, questions, whatever your sort of tickles your fancy out in the YouTube chat as well. Myself and Tom, we do not bite, and we'd love to sort of see what the chat's thinking. Can see a lot of you having your input in the chat, so let us know who's supporting what could well be happening as we approach into the final 16 minutes of round number 1. Richard Simnor leading the way, still stays out for another lap, as do the entirety of the top 3. So leaving it fairly late as Smoggy makes his way into the pit lane as well. I think this goes back to what you're saying, delaying the inevitable of putting more fuel back into the car for as long as possible, so much so that you minimise the load into the tyres and also shorten the pit stop itself by only having to put in, say, 15 minutes of fuel.
Yeah, well, Antoine Delaire pitted in the lap before, so we'll see how he gets on. It's going to be close, I think, between Smoggy and Antoine Delaire. I think Smoggy's done his stop now. Where is Antoine Delaire? I don't think he's in front of him, is he? Unless I'm mistaken, but we'll find out in a moment. I think Smoggy, has got in front of Antoine Delaire by quite some way.
Yeah, he has. I've just looked on the timing screen. It's 14th for Smoggy. It's 16th for Antoine Delaire, and about a 2-second differential between the pair of them. So Smoggy has been able to pull off the overcut, and I think that has set the standard, that has set the benchmark for what's to come for the remainder of this race. How late can you leave it? There he is, Smoggy just ahead of Gareth Ronda. Then in behind there is the Porsche of Pierre-Antoine Delaire and that 333. So he's done a good job of doing so, and I think an important one to cover that off in order to prevent Antoine Delaire getting the jump on him. But of course, it might well leave the top 3 to do their bidding for the podium places. Simnor from Nuttall, from Pollard, I think all of them stayed out another lap. They have, leaving it quite late into this race.
Yeah, they're wanting as light of a fuel load as possible. So they're staying out there for the time being. And just to answer Jake Patrick's question, how many laps are there? Either 26 or 27 at most. Working it out, because when I looked at the 20-minute mark, I think they were just only completing, or coming around to complete the 14th or the 13th lap. Bearing in mind each driver needs to do a pit stop, so I would probably say 27 laps is the most that they will be doing. And it's not 40 minutes plus 1 lap, it's 40 minutes, and then when the clock reaches 40 minutes, whatever lap the leader is on, it's their last lap.
Exactly that for the proceedings of this race. As soon as that timer ticks 0, the checker flag will be waved, and that will bring the end of this race. Whether it'll be close or not, of course, we'll have to wait and see. It all depends on the track position of Richard Simnor or whoever's leading at the time. It might not be Simnor, but he's definitely pulled something out of the bag this last lap. He's been able to grow the gap to Jamie Nuttall to over a second, the largest it's been pretty much all race long, forcing Jamie Nuttall into the hands maybe of Mike Pollard in that fight for second place. So Simnor may be having a pretty high IQ play here in trying to get away, trying to bolt away while he can. Again, leaving it out for another lap, so extending it towards the 30-minute mark. Jamie Nuttall with him, same to Mike Pollard. Of course, they might well still be jumped potentially by Sir Smoggy. I don't think they're going to be, though, in terms of their last lap times, still running in the high 29s, low 30s, the top three, so running at a good pace, to say the least. But there you can see exiting the pit lane, and that's what I was talking about in qualifying, about it getting very, very close on the exit between the three of them. But if Richard Simnor is able to keep this pace up, after the pit lane stops, he could be in a good position to win this race, and he's been pretty much in a good position to win the race all race long, leading from pole position. Hasn't really felt any pressure or made any mistakes.
No mistakes at all so far. Knuckle, I think, has kind of accepted that the Chancellor is not going to get past him on circuit, and it's been a DCW racing headache for Jamie Knuckle in that sandwich of Simnor and Pollard. Whilst we're watching Pierre-Antoine Dallaire, who's behind Smoggy for position. He's only about a couple of seconds behind him now, but Smoggy, I think, with the track position he has got, I think he's within range of a potential podium. Maybe not the win, but a podium could well be on the cards for him here.
Yeah, maybe so. We'll have to wait and see. That seems to be locked down, though, with Simnor, Nuttall and Pollard. They seem to be fairly dominant in their stature, but mistakes, anything can sort of pry it ajar ever so slightly and maybe upset the works a little bit. 12 minutes left to go, make that 11 minutes and 20 seconds to be precise, as we run away onto the 20th lap of the race. 19 completed. We predict there'll be 7 more to go, and I think honestly we've managed to nail that fairly close. We'll see as to what it ends up being in the end, because they're running pretty much bang on a minute and a half lap times. They still have to make that pit stop, which will lose them maybe sort of 30 or 40 seconds, but time will tell as to exactly how many laps we get. Adika Adongi at the moment in 16th, trying to close in on Nick Clibbins. This is for the final place inside the top 15, and of course it will be for, what is that, fourth. They're 4 AMs ahead of them, or, well, there might well be less than that after they've done their pit stops, and in fact it will be. So be a little bit higher up in terms of the overall standings and, of course, the pro standings. But after the final AMs make their way into pit lane, will David Long re-inherit his race lead? You would assume so. Cheverton was the big one to take note of. Has he been able to pull off an overcut? I think so, actually. I think he has, by about 3 seconds. Cheverton now leads David Long for the AMs.
Yes, it has. And there's a spin at the back. Now he's come together with someone as Cheverton, and the front bumper has gone on that car.
And that has gone 0 to 0 for Matt Cheverton. That has put him out of contention, has lost him the AM lead, as Jamie Nuttall has found himself ahead of Richard Simnor. How has that happened? Has Simnor made his way into the pit lane? He has. Jamie Nuttall stays out another lap. Mike Pollard comes in as well for DCW Racing. So both of the teammates coming in on this lap, the 20th lap, to take us on to the 21st. Jamie Nuttall leaving this very, very late indeed. Liam Giles continues on for another lap as well. We've seen how powerful the overcut is. We saw it with Cheverton before he bottled it or made contact with whoever it was. Jamie Nuttall going for the overcut. He might not have to make an overtake on track to take the win.
Well, we'll wait and see. I'm just looking at Marcio Lopez, because I don't think he stopped in the AM class. So looking at who has stopped then. Well, Bart Raven I don't think has stopped either. I might be looking at the wrong drivers at the moment. We're going to get a replay here. That is David Long, who's had that spin at turn. Well, that's at Hotel Corner. He's also lost time as a result of the contact with Matt Cheverton earlier. So both of which that could have been winning this one. Well, that's out of the equation now. It's game on in the AMs.
It's now Bart Raven's race lead. You're right, Marcio Lopez hadn't pitted. He now has. He's made his way into the pit lane to take that mandatory stop. Bart Raven, though, 3/4 of a second clear of Mav Gardner, who himself is 3/10 clear of Niels Call, who himself is half a second clear of Matt Cheverton. That's that four-way fight for 15th overall. That's the lead fight in the AMs on track. This could be very interesting indeed. Another point of interest, Jamie Nuttall into the pit lane, overcooks it, onto the grass, touches the barrier. How much time loss is that going to be in what is a crucial pit lane entrance for him? It's such a trivial thing, but time loss is time loss, and how tight that battle has been all race long, he cannot afford any of it. Into the pit lane, there is that Mercedes of Richard Simnor. This is the on-track battle. It's a fight against time. Nuttall needs to get back out.
And Felix Smoggy has completed an undercut on Mike Pollard, and he's ahead of him on merit now. So Smoggy could all of a sudden be ahead of Knuckle into second place by the time the pit stops are done.
Indeed, so Richard Simnor round to the final corner. Jamie Nuttall, of course, won't have too much fuel to put back into the car because it's only a 7.5 minute dash to the end. But is it enough? Liam Giles is exiting the pit lane. Jamie Nuttall tumbling down the order outside maybe of the top 10. Where is he? He's still stationary in the pit lane. This is disastrous for Jamie Nuttall, who has gone from a potential overcut winning strategy to outside of the top 10 and nowhere in this race. It's Simnor from Smoggy now, 0.8 of a second separating the two of them. Simnor, who's led this race, Smoggy, who's come from outside the podium places to come into second place. 7 minutes left of this race, and either one of them could come out on top. Smoggy has been given this opportunity thanks to his strategy. He does not want to waste it.
Well, no, he won't. And I think Knuckles' timing of a pit stop has come from hitting the Armco on the pit entry, and that's contributed to him falling down the order. Where is he now? Well, he's down in 22nd place overall, is Jamie Knuckle. And yeah, any chance of a podium is well and truly gone for him. Richard Simnor is back into the lead with Felix Smokey, who was outside of that top 4 before the pit stops had begun, is now into a second place.
Just getting confirmation from Kieran Sharp, by the way, in the YouTube chat, that it's a pit penalty for Jamie Nuttall, who was too fast on the entry. And now that is a huge bottle job. You thought Andrew Pike was bad. Just wait until you see Jamie Nuttall. I mean, it was clear as day that it overshot it going into the pit lane. Didn't quite realise it was before the speed limit line that he'd done it. And now that is suboptimal to say the least. Richard Simnor, you'd have to say, is now favourite to take this win. I don't know, I've seen magic from Sir Smoggy before. I'm sure maybe we'll see it again. Bart Raven at 14th overall, leading the way in the AMs. A decent gap back to Mav Gardner for second.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bart Raven just needs to just settle now. And he's got the AM win in his pocket. Mav Gardner second, and it's Niels Kuhl making it 2 DOTS drivers in the top 3 in the AM class, and it's Matt Cheverton, after that spin earlier, is in 4th place in that respective category, and without a front bumper.
This is what happened to Jamie Nuttall, by the way, into the pit lane entry. Overcooked it through that first corner. Now, where is the pit limit line? Is it all the way? It is all the way down here. There you can see, though, those 2 green cones. He's nowhere near got it stopped. That's the frustration of a driver that's messed up. He's trying to make up for it, has broken too late, and has cost himself this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the jeopardy of getting your pit limiter timing wrong. We're looking at David Long here, who was the AM leader at the beginning of the race, no longer is. And this is the incident actually with Cheverton, isn't it? And they both spin round, and I think someone else got involved and collided with Cheverton in the aftermath of that too.
Yeah, it's a long day for David Long then, as the favourite in the AM class. Lost it in pit strategy, tried to make that move up the inside. Both of them pirouetted in tandem, and that's cost the pair of them a chance at the race victory. But Raven then secure is maybe the favourite to go and take it with just over 4 minutes left to run of this race. 4 minutes and 12 seconds remaining of round 1 of the Abruzzi GT4 iRacing series here for the Sim Racing Collective. The second place AM car, Mav Gardner from Niels Kuhl, Matt Cheverton in 17th place, off the podium, but still very close, still within the conversation. As you can see, that red and black BMW in the background, trying to fight his way through and carve his way through, but time is of the essence, and it's definitely a luxury that he does not have.
Well, he's stuck behind a pro driver now, is Bart Raven. He's got William Chandler ahead, unless that's a back marker actually, because Chandler's a lot further in front, and we are seeing Richard Simnor just getting through one of the back markers. I wonder who that might be. Not that it really matters at this point, but he's through at last and not held up, and neither are those who are chasing him.
No, absolutely not. Sir Smokey was not held up by any means, and neither was Mike Pollard either, so maybe that fight for second isn't a done deal. Of course, the mutual objective between the pair of them probably is to fight for the lead, but don't forget that Pollard is the teammate of Simnor, and there might not be too much at play in order to maybe cost DCW the win in this race. So Smokey, while he is sandwiched between the pair of them, might not be getting too much of a helping hand from Pollard, and I think the priority is going to be to try secure that 1-2. Pierre-Antoine Delaire behind, of course, Miller in 4th place. The Porsche, the 81, been able to work his way forward as well. So we've got a 3 Porsche train trying to close in onto the double Mercedes leading 2. And of course, with 2.5 minutes left to go, this will be the penultimate lap of the race. Next time by will be the last lap. Time is running out, opportunities wearing thin, and Dallaire looking to try and at the very least close the gap and maybe work his way onto the podium.
I think it's 3 laps to go, actually, Zach, thinking about it, because I was watching the leaders cross over the line, and I think it was over 3 minutes to go when they crossed over, so I think there'll be 2 more laps after this one.
Yeah, maybe so. Never trust a commentator's math, so probably me looking at that with a bit too much haste, but yeah, might well be the next lap being the penultimate one. Of course, we'll keep you updated. Yeah, of course, it's 2 minutes to go, and they're working their way now through the Shell S, then in towards Saxon-Anhalt curve. So if they cross the line in the next 19 seconds, they will get another lap out of this one, and it does seem to be the case. They're going to do it close. It's going to be close. It's going to be only a few seconds between us getting another lap and not, but it will be the penultimate time at this time by Richard Simnor, Sir Smogy, Mike Pollard. Of course, then we've got Hayden Miller and Pierre-Antoine Dallaire. 5 cars, 1 victor of round number 1. I'll have to wait and see as to who it's going to be, but there could well be the look from Mike Pollard.
Yeah. I think you have to say the driver of the race so far has been Felix Smogy as well, 8th on the grid, so finding his way up into 2nd place. Now we've got a battle. This is Niels Cole, too deep on the brakes there, and that allows the door open for Cheverton to make his way through and up into the podium places in AM.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Absolute cinema, as Kieran Sharp would put it in the YouTube chat there. Side by side, Niels Cole trying to work his way through. Up in a 16th place, that's Matt Cheverton on his inside. Looking to the outside as Andrew Pike trying to get involved in this battle. Not really where he deserves to be in terms of the timing order. He needs to be further up than this, but fighting with the AM lead fight. And Niels Cole, got to be careful not to lose his core in what is a very heated battle. Trying to close in on Mav Gardner. That's, of course, the fight for second. Burt Raven seems to be secure in that AM victory, provided he keeps it on the grey stuff and doesn't throw it away, but we've seen stranger things thus far this race. I think just about to stick themselves onto the final lap will be our race leaders, Richard Simnor from Felix Smogy and Mike Pollard. The gap now just over, or just under 1 second. Simnor with 1 lap left to go seems home free.
Yeah, white flag wave now, so the drivers know that this will be the last lap. I just hope that all the drivers have not underfueled, because it's very easy to do and miscalculate, but I think they should have enough fuel between now and the end.
Yeah, you'd assume so. There shouldn't be too much problems. I mean, I've seen stranger things, I've got to be honest. I mean, people might have miscalculated, but it's a slight oversight that not many people would have made. You'd have been probably better safe than sorry, but 4 cars now, nose to tail for the fight for second. I think the fight for the win is a little bit far away. Richard Simnor has just been top quality all race long.
It was a top quality race from Richard Simnor. Calm and collected from start to finish, but I stand by the fact that Felix Smogy has been my driver of the day, provided he doesn't make any mistakes from here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, still a couple of opportunities for it to go wrong, but you're right, he has been top quality. And making the moves, the strategy as well has been executed to perfection. Of course, got lucky in some regards, but in motorsport you make your own luck. Gotta say though, Richard Simnor, Sir Smogy, maybe to an extent the likes of Bart Raven throw their hat into the driver of the round discussion. Of course, those in the Sim Racing Collective Discord can vote. But one thing is for certain, you cannot take anything away from one Mr. Richard Simnor. Round number 1 of the Sim Racing Collective Abruzzi GT4 iRacing series here at Oschersleben goes the way of Richard Simnor, who dominates this race from pole position. It was not easy, the pressure was on, but he holds firm to take the first win of the season ahead of Sir Smogy, who climbs his way 6 places from 8th on the grid. Mike Pollard completes the podium, makes it double for the teammates of Hayden Miller and of course Pierre-Antoine Dallaire. We'll run you through the full extent of the finishing order as soon as we can, but Bart Raven, another driver as I say, who can be in that discussion for driver of the round, out of the final corner, capitalised on his lucky day, and it's his time in the sun. Bart Raven is the AM winner of round number 1 here for the Sim Racing Collective Abruzzi iRacing GT4 series. Niels Cole, of course, that fight all the way to the end with himself, Mav Gardner, and Matt Cheverton for the final places on the podium. David Long, and what could have been for the driver that seemed so secure after qualifying, just showing the harsh reality of motor racing.
Yep, and he'll learn from that going forward, David Long. Perhaps put it in too early and allowing his rivals to have the advantage, particularly Matt Cheverton, who got in front of him initially before they quickly collided at pit exit, and that just handed the win on a plate to Bart Raven, but he won't complain about that one bit. We're just waiting for the remaining drivers to cross over the line, and we'll run down on the final race result.
We will indeed. Joe Thomas, the 30th driver to do so. I think those behind him, the likes of Matt Smith, Mark Pisa, Lewis Mason and Ron Maynard, did not make it to the end. So it will be Joe Thomas that rounds off our fleet of cars to take the checkered flag for race number 1 of this 6-round series. We'll bring up the race results pretty much bang on now. There we go. No, we won't. That's qualifying. There's the race. Boom. Either way, it's Richard Simonor at the top of the sheet, ahead of Felix Mogi and Mike Pollard, 2 and 3. Hayden Miller from Pierre-Antoine Delaire are top 5. Then comes Fleming Jensen ahead of Liam Giles and Ryan Walker, the 7 car, in 8th. 313, Nick Clibbins in 9th, ahead of Ndika and Dongi, the top 10. Scott Warner from Richard Phillips and William Chandler are top 13. Before you get to the AMS, it's Bart Raven that was able to take the victory ahead of Mav Gardner and Niels Cool, who kept his cool and was able to bring home 3rd. Matt Cheverton, after the contact with David Long, had to recover. 4th was the best he could muster. Andrew Pike down in 18th place, losing out after qualifying inside the top 15, ahead of Stefan Mellis. James Smagsgale in 20th, ahead of Stefan Hutter. Jamie Nuttall, the bottle job that happened from the GT3 champion, the 14, ahead of David Long, who unfortunately made contact with his race-long rival. Johnny Wu ahead of Gareth Ronda, Thomas Martin from Grant Miller and Marcio Lopez, the top 28. Then comes Nathan Lewis-Stone, Joe Thomas, the 30th and final driver to take to the checkered flag on the lead lap. Then comes Matt Smith, Mark Pisa, Lewis Mason, Ron Maynard to round it all off. Our 34th and final driver, who of course did not make the majority of this race, pitting in on the 3rd lap to retire. But 30 cars on the lead lap, 33 of 34 finishing, and a good race throughout. Don't think we can complain, to be honest.
No, absolutely not. And the drivers will be revving up and raring to go for the next one in a week's time. In case you wanted to know where they'll be racing at, it'll be at another German racetrack. That'll be at Hockenheim. And I think that is the kind of circuit we should see more overtaking and more battling that day, I think.
Yeah, exactly. We are going to grab an interview with each of our, well, I say podium sitters. So we've got Hayden Miller, the 81. We'll talk to him first. He was able to finish in fact, no, I can move him. Boom, there we go. Beautiful. We'll speak to you first, Hayden. P4 on the end, but not far off the podium at all. In fact, not far off the win at all. Talk us through the first race of the season, Oschersleben, and pretty much that fight for the lead. All in all, it's very close, very competitive, and hopefully setting the stage for what's going to be a good season.
That was just hectic. The Porsche feels nice, but if you overshoot a corner or you scrub the tires too much, that's them done. But yeah, the lap times they're so close to each other. It's almost impossible to pass on this track as well with these heavy cars. Yeah, just overall really dramatic and fun race.
What can we expect for the season ahead then? Of course, we're at Hockenheim in a week's time, Road Atlanta, Zolder, Watkins Glen and Spa. Pretty historic, pretty fun calendar to take to. What can we expect?
Me personally, Hockenheim, I done some testing on that about a week ago. It feels nice. Porsche feels really good around there. To be honest, I can't tell you about any other trucks because I've not done any testing on them.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come and have a chat with us. Congratulations on P4, and hopefully we'll see you back and good results for next week at Hockenheim.
Thank you.
Hayden Miller, of course, the 81, 4th place in the end. Next up, we'll take a word, I believe, with our AM winner of course, a Bart Raven. I think he's up there in the interview room. We'll drag him in.
Hello.
Talk us through your race. Hello, Bart Raven. That was a chaotic race in the AMS. It's good going.
Well, yeah, it's in the end, it was really good. I don't know what happened to the fastest M guy, the David Long, because he was the fastest by a mile in quali at least. But an early pit stop worked out for me, and I gained 9 places, so I'm pretty happy. Um, I don't know why I've been put in AM, but I'm here and I've won. So
I mean, you got the win in the end. No complaints from you, I'm sure. I mean, great race then. Of course, maybe a slight bit of luck in regards to the timing of David Long and his rival, but you were there ready to scoop it up. Was the strategy pitting early the sort of what you came into that race knowing you'd do, or was it sort of a last minute decision? How did you come up with a strategy to pit early?
all credits for the strategy must go to Herf Stefan Hutter, because he told me he was gonna do the early pit stop, and I thought, what do I have to lose, you know? So I did it as well. We were on a Discord call with all the crack guys, so all credits to him, really.
Fair enough. Magpied and then executed to perfection. It's a 6-round championship. You're leading the championship now for the AMS. What can we expect for round 2 onwards, particularly obviously at Hockenheim next week? Next up. What are your aspirations for the season? Is it the championship, or are you just going to be here to enjoy the ride?
Listen, I'm just gonna try my best. I've recently installed new pedals, load cells for the first time, so I'm just trying to make the best out of it. And I know I'm not like there in speed, obviously, to compare to some of the other guys. But I'm gonna have fun with the guys and do my best. That's all.
Well, best of luck, of course, for the rest of the season, and of course for round 2 at Hockenheim. Thanks for coming and have a chat with us, and congrats on the win today.
No worries. Thank you very much. Bye
Thank
bye.
you very much, Bart Raven, taking the time to come and have a chat with us. How nice. We'll pop him back in the interview waiting room, and did a brilliant job is to secure that win. Now we get to the talk to the man, the myth, the legend of Richard Simnor. From pole position, it wasn't easy, but the pace was there. It held up. The pit strategy did its job, and you won the race. Talk us through sort of your perspective of it, because from our perspective, it was cool, calm, and collected. I'm sure it was a very different feeling maybe in the cockpit.
Have you ever driven the Merc? It's like an ice rink. So I was skidding all over the place. First couple of laps, was not comfortable at all. Tires started to sort of settle down, and I got to the right sort of pace and held it. I mean, from that perspective, just being able to bang in some nice consistency throughout the race was a real plus. Yeah, pit stop was okay. I forgot to pull my clutch in pulling away, so probably lost a little bit there. Yeah, don't know really. It's it probably looked easy. It felt really difficult. I mean, it was less than half a second for most of the race, so you're always driving in the rear view mirror rather than really focusing on what's going on in front of you. And just thankfully, the Merc's really good on corner exits. So even if I did make a little bit of a mistake, I was able to pull away.
Making the most of the advantage of the car. What was the motivation behind the Merc then? If it's a car you've never jumped into, was it just a late call to do the GT4s, or?
um, it's the first race I've ever driven in it. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I think I did one official a while back, and Mikey Pollard came on to spot me, and I instantly blew my engine downshifting. So that wasn't really a race. I think I was about 3 laps in. So I just decided no, I was going to drive the Porsche because that's what he drives, and we tend to do a lot of races and endurance races together. I just decided on something different, to be honest. I said to him, why not try a different car? And so I said, I'll jump in a Merc and he can stay in a Porsche, and we'll see if it is any better. I think based on the way he was moaning at me to speed up, I don't think it is.
Well, you won the race. That's what matters in the end. Obviously, it's a long season ahead. Still got 5 more rounds. Where are your aspirations then? I know it's a car and it's the learning curve and everything like that, but is the championship possible?
It's not, because I had got a weekend planned. I think round 5. It was my birthday, so I was in London. But unfortunately, my granddad died recently, and his funeral's now going to take me out of round 4. So I'll only be here for 4 rounds, which is a bit of a shame. I kind of sort of set my aspirations on a sort of top 3 or 4, but there's so many guys that are really close on pace. So I think it's just going to be sort of track dependent sort of series. We'll probably see a lot of different winners, I think. Certainly hope to see my teammate Pollard up there on the top step a few of the rounds as well. So we'll see what happens at the end.
What I'm hearing is it's not going to be the championship, but it's 4 race wins.
I'd love that. I'd love that. I'd love to wind Mikey up about it, given that we know the Porsche so well. So yeah, that would be funny. I don't think it would be the case though.
Does seem to be a very tight and close competition. I mean, if not you, then I mean, typically you're probably going to say Pollard to win the championship. But who do you think are the contenders for this season? There are a lot of fast guys out there.
Yeah, I mean, geez, like any of that top 5 tonight, we're all the same pace. I know Kieran wasn't here tonight, and I know we've raced against each other last year, I think it was. We were pretty much nose to tail every single round, so I know he's quick as well. So yeah, I couldn't call it. I honestly couldn't call it. I mean, you might have a better idea than me, to be honest, but certainly based on the way that the guys were able to catch the gaps up after various mistakes or slowdowns, they obviously had the pace, but the track's not a very good one for overtaking. I don't think it's quite a tight one. So we might see, in the next few rounds, a bit better idea as to the championship order.
Well, thank you very much for coming and have a chat with us. Congrats on the race win. Hopefully, we'll see you at the front of the races that you can attend, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you so much.
Awesome stuff. That's Richard Simnor, our race winner of the pros for round number 1 of this series. Tom, before we round up, what do we make of round 1? What have we learned? What can we take with us for the rest of the season?
Well, it was very touching for Richard to come in and say that he's missing a couple of rounds because obviously with what's gone on within his own family, with the passing of his grandfather. But it's nice of him to sort of come out and say it, and he's obviously won tonight. And hopefully we'll see him do it again and just maximise his chances. Like you say, it's unrealistic he'll take the title, but the fact he's won tonight, it was a strong performance by him and very well done also to Bart Raven on the AM class win there, because it looks very unexpected for him to come out on top in that. But that tells you everything about this championship.
Does indeed. Unexpected twists, turns, anything you can name in the tale of the Sim Racing Collective Abruzzi GT4 series here on the world of iRacing. Ladies and gentlemen, that unfortunately is going to round up our action here today, but fear not for those in the love of the Sim Racing Collective. They'll be back on Sunday for the first round of the Sports Car Championship that I'll be commentating on. That's why I know it's happening. So make sure you're tuning in. If you're watching along on the Sim Racing Collective YouTube channel, make sure to like, subscribe, turn the bell on for notifications to stay up to date with all things in the world of primarily iRacing, but of course, naturally dabbling in a couple of other sims. So get yourself involved, check out their SimGrid page, and of course, make sure to go and show your thanks to the sponsor of this championship, of Abruzzi, by heading over and using the affiliate link, and of course applying discount code TSRC5 at checkout to get yourself 5% off any goodies that you decide to purchase from the top quality brand that is Abruzzi in sim racing. For those watching on the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel, make sure to like, subscribe, turn the bell on for notifications to stay up to date with all things sim racing. We dabble on anything that really tickles your fancy, whether you're looking to find your favorites or dabble in something new in the world of motorsport. There will be something here for you. In terms of this broadcast, it's been myself, Zach Sweeney, Tom Cairns alongside me in the commentary box, with Kieran Sharp sacrificing his championship to do us the favour of bringing us the broadcast, pushing the buttons, making the broadcast look lovely and pretty. We thank you to everyone for watching along at home. From us, for the GT4s, we'll see you next week when we head to Hockenheim. It's goodbye for now.